some breaking news this hour. Anthropic has announced plans to spend $50 billion on data centers in the U.S. Let's get the details with Bloomberg Tech co-host Ed Ludlow. And just looking at this headline, I'm kind of like, they didn't already promise that? It feels like every tech company has some huge number that they're going to be spending on data centers. What's Anthropic committing to?
Yeah, $50 billion in partnership with a British company called FluidStack, where they are owning and building and operating the data center facilities. But $50 billion is at much smaller scale than, say, compared to OpenAI. OpenAI, Anthropic's nearest rival as a frontier AI lab and commercial entity, has pledged $500 billion for the Stargate project alone in the United States, which it had plans to also take overseas. Meta is another good example, a different type of company, but within it an AI lab where their own domestic data center spending will be $600 billion. And for all three of those, it's stacked over a number of years. Where Anthropic's perhaps different is that this is $50 billion for something it's doing itself, but it has relied much more heavily on the hyperscale partners that it has, Amazon AWS, and as we reported most recently, Google, for use of Google's TPUs.
Do they have the revenue to fund this? I mean, this is a question that Sam Altman was posed recently because he wants to spend $1.4 trillion, but only has $13 billion in revenue. He didn't want to answer that question.
Right.
What about Anthropic?
So what we know from recent reports is that Anthropic is looking at revenues of about 70 billion, 70, by the calendar or fiscal year 2028. Right now, OpenAI, I think you mentioned the $13 billion figure. Its annual revenue run rate figure is about $20 billion for 2025. One point of interesting difference between the two of them, in part because Anthropic has not committed as much capital of its own up front, it's relied on this capital-light model with partners, is that there is a growing consensus that Anthropic may reach profitability quicker than OpenAI does, because OpenAI is committed to spending its way to growth in a way that Anthropic isn't, at that scale.